Hello, welcome to this presentation, The Ins and Outs of QR Codes in the Classroom. I'm Mary Bettlach. QR codes have been around for a while. They originated in Japan in the automobile industry. They really caught on significantly in the in Asia, and have recently begun to show up on lots of different publications in the U.S. Here's a couple of examples that came across my doorstep. One was the Sunday paper, which had this American TV advertisement in it, and there was a QR code on that. The next one was an advertisement that came through my mail, and it was inviting me, or advertising actually, a seminar that I could attend, a professional development seminar. Here's an example of a very large QR code outside of a visitor center in Michigan. And to demonstrate the size of this particular QR code, I had a couple of friends stand behind it. So today I thought we would spend some time learning what types of information can be contained in a QR code, understand how to scan or read them, tell several ways to use them in the classroom, to know the tools that are needed to create QR codes, and to be able to complete the process of creating a code. So what exactly is a QR code? Well, QR stands for quick response. It is two-dimensional. It is computer generated and is much like a barcode, and barcodes we know have been around for quite some time. It links the physical world to the electronic world, and it can contain up to 250 characters of information. So what do I need for reading a QR code? I need some sort of a reader, and I've listed a few of those that are apps for smartphones, and Red Laser is one, Neo Reader, QR Reader, and Enigma, which is my most recent favorite one of all because of the speed at which it processes what it reads. You need a mobile device or a computer, and if you're using a computer, this Quick Mark for PC, provided you can unpack it with WinZip, works well for PC as well as the Mac OS X. So what's the process? Well, you obtain a QR code reader for a smart device or a computer. You hold the device over the QR code and you wait for the code to be read. It uses the camera built into those devices. And then when prompted to follow a link, you click OK. So let's see what that might look like. I'm holding my phone directly over the code, and I'm aligning it in this box here. Once it's aligned, you have to maintain a steady hand. For older code readers like Red Laser, I had to hold my phone really, really steady in order for it to read it. And then you can see that it provides a link to what information is contained in that code. And I'm able then to do one of two things. I can either do a search on the web, or I can share via email. The second one was just holding over the advertisement that came in the newspaper, letting the QR reader, laser reader, Red Laser, read that one. And then it gave me the link you see here, the link to American TV, and I could go ahead and open that browser if I wanted to do that. The other thing is that you can also maintain a history within your device as to what particular codes you've read, and you see I have a listing of 6 different codes here that I can go back to at a later date. Okay, so why would we want to use a QR code in schools? Well, first of all, it's faster than copying down a URL. You can supplement written material with media, and I'll show you how that works, or you can support text with narration. So the first step is to download a QR code reader, and I'm going to go to the Apple iTunes Store and show you how that might work. So here's iTunes, and it defaults to opening up my iTunes account, but I really want to go to the store. So I'll click on iTunes Store. And when that opens, I'm going to search the store for Enigma. So I-N-I-G-M-A. And so here's Enigma QR code. And there it is. It's free. I can click on it and then download it to iTunes. Or I can go directly from my device into iTunes and download it that way. Okay, so that's the first step. So I've downloaded my QR code reader. And then now, as I mentioned earlier, Enigma is very, very fast. So I had a difficult time getting these pictures taken because every time I would align or even bring that barcode within any proximity to this identified area here, it would move right on out and give me the link. So I am moving, in this picture, I'm moving the device up over the code and trying to get a shot before it goes ahead and makes that connection. Okay, so what types of content can be contained? We can provide links to videos. So here's an example. One of those codes is actually a link to a video about hydrogen, and this is the periodic table of videos. So it went right to YouTube. I can also contain audio. So on the right is a scan of a children's book, and within that I have taped a code whereby I recorded myself reading this story, and then now if I were to hold a smart device over that code, it would link out and it would link to an audio file, and that audio file would then play and I would hear that story being read aloud. You can also link out to pictures. And here's an example of a picture that might be contained in a code, and it's a picture of Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Or here's an example of another picture, and during the Civil War there was some cartoons that were published, and this is talking about Abraham Lincoln, and he appears to be a sleeping giant. So it might be something that might be part of a classroom discussion. We can also link to websites. So an example would be this one links to a website that provides a video of how to tie a shoe. The second one links to a website called QR Stuff, and we will take a look at QR Stuff in a few minutes. We can link to plain text or documents. The left one with the little elves and shamrocks on will link to Happy St. Patrick's Day. And if you noticed, if I'll go back a minute, codes don't have to be just black and white. So we'll look at then the blue one links to simply my name and email. So let's talk about some examples of what things we might be able to find or link to in a QR code in schools. This is the periodic table of elements, and each of the elements is represented by a code which links to a video. So the video that I showed you earlier, just the screenshot of it, is an example of one of the elements from this this periodic table. Other examples. Here is a worksheet, and in this worksheet we see that there's a code. So how might we use that? Well, maybe at the beginning of class we provide a code for students, and that code maybe has a writing prompt. It links out to a video. Maybe it links to current events. So any way to get the kids into the classroom and start working right away and get them engaged and engrossed in the task at hand. So if on this particular worksheet, that code links out to an explanation of um, long division. So maybe it links to a Khan Academy video, or maybe it's a video you've created, or anything else, but it's a way to supplement your worksheets with QR codes. Here's an example where it's been integrated into a lesson. So in this lesson, the students are learning more about the Pledge of Allegiance. Where do I stand? How do I face? Where do I put my hand? What do I do with my hat if I have one? And then the code links out to actually the Pledge of Allegiance itself in text form. You could update old textbooks with a code. So here's an example of an old math textbook, and there's a post-it that is placed in the book, and the QR code is actually taped to the post-it. So you could pull that out very easily if you didn't want it to stay in that book. An example might be creation of a poster, and you could have students work in groups to create these different components of the poster. But this example is Jane Eyre, and there are codes that link out to the Jane Eyre play, or to the biography of the author, to an online book, a movie information, academic summary. Here's other examples. We could have QR codes used in foreign language class. So maybe the code provides the correct pronunciation of vocabulary words that are being taught. Or maybe it's support for reading vocabulary in that it's how the word is used in a sentence, or the definition of new vocabulary words. So maybe we use codes to provide test instructions or test directions, or even the code might be the audio file that actually reads that test question and answers. Think about the times that we send our students out to take tests, and we send an adult with them. So we could significantly improve their independence by providing this sort of accommodation or adaptation. We could conduct a treasure hunt. We could put codes throughout the school, throughout the classroom, outdoors, and students would have to find the clue that is embedded within the code, or respond with an answer to a question. We could, if we have an inspirational poem or a quote in the classroom, put a code onto that links out to the author, or what the author was thinking about when that poem or quote was written. Book reviews. This is a fabulous idea. Each of these books in the picture here has a code on it. And if a librarian, a school librarian, had students, I guess the school librarian, if the school librarian were working directly with a classroom teacher, students would read the books, and then they would write a book review. So now we've got reading and writing, and after they wrote the book review, then they would record themselves. So now we add in some public speaking or oral speaking, and then after they're recorded, then that recording is made into a QR code. So now we've got some tech integration going on. So we've got all kinds of standards that we could address with a project like this. And then the beauty of it is that when students go to the library, think about how they typically make selections of books. They pull a book off a shelf, they look at the cover. Or maybe they'll look at the thickness of the book, or they might look at the text size in the book. All those things really don't give them much of an idea about what the book is about. But if they could scan a QR code and here appear providing a book review, it might really improve their decision-making in selecting books. Other examples. This is actually a picture of a calendar in a science lab, and each of the codes represents the experiment that was done or conducted on that day. So if a student had been absent, or if a student didn't quite get the experiment right or didn't quite understand, these codes might help them. For family or consumer science, if students have completed the cooking of a recipe, perhaps they have a written copy of the recipe that's handed out, and then on it is a code which is the step, maybe it's a video of the step-by-step instructions of how to follow that recipe and make whatever the product was that the students cooked on that day. For band or music, the code could include a student's individual part for band so they could practice at home. I think about music when I had to take music appreciation. So we listened to lots of classical music, but if you don't have very good oral memory, it's really hard to go back and take a test over that music that maybe you only heard once or twice in the classroom. So the codes could include samples of the music that you're studying. Codes can be added to teacher notes. So at the beginning of the year, the teacher could do an introduction of him or herself. It could include a video of a class activity that's upcoming, or maybe a class activity that happened in the past to generate some excitement about the one that's going to occur in the future. Here's an example of a code that was used to advertise an art show. Here's an example of codes that are used for a timeline. And this could be a great student project with students all taking on a different portion of an individual's life. Other examples, supported reading. We talked already about how we might support reading with audio files that are embedded in codes. Parent-teacher nights or clubs. It's possible to put codes throughout a school. Imagine a trophy case that has codes with links to the videos or pictures of the teams that actually won those trophies, or any kind of a fun story that might be associated with it. Or maybe there are codes outside of classrooms, and as parents go through the school, they can learn a little bit more about what happens in that classroom. Clubs could use codes to advertise what they do, how often they meet, and to generate some excitement about their particular organization. You could attach it to student calendars to advertise an event that's coming up. It could be used as supplemental materials for teacher textbooks. Imagine the end of the school year when those textbooks are put onto the shelf. If throughout the year you've placed codes within those books, the next year you pull that book out and you get to a certain chapter and, oh, here's the video that I used to provide media and supplemental material for my students. What about field trips? I was recently on a field trip. I was at a historic site, and there were some students there who were there on a field trip, and I thought how marvelous it would be if they had a sheet with codes that would help them better understand some of the displays they were viewing, or better provide questions for them to make sure that they read the content that they were asked to, or find out certain information about the exhibit. Current events is an option for our code. Even agendas or links to conference material. Study guides. The code could contain the answers to the study guide questions. Codes can provide links to maps. They can provide information about what's happening in school this week. That could be, a code could be taped to a mirror in a bathroom, on the door of a bathroom stall, or bulletin boards throughout the school. Science fair projects. Imagine a student describing the science fair project in a video format, or even maybe the video is a demonstration of what actually transpired during the experiment that was conducted. This is an example of codes that are attached to a skeleton, so those could link out to more information about the bones or the muscles that attach to those bones. Other examples would include related services, and I could see a therapist doing an introductory video at the beginning of the year. I could see codes that link out to summer activities. or to the right or the particular method of shoe tying that's being taught, or to the correct formation of letters, things that could go home to help inform parents about what's happening in therapy, as well as provide them with media examples that will help them carry through therapeutic sort of tasks at home. Social stories could be embedded into codes. Transition activities. Imagine a student who's working in a transition setting, and we typically have either a coach or a teacher who supports that student, but imagine if the student could be more independent because each of the stations that they rotated through had a code, and if the student forgot what was to happen at that station, the code would be a link to support them in understanding or showing them better what they needed to do there. So here's a couple of sites that are used to make QR codes. The first is qrstuff.com, and the second is qrcode.kwa.com. My personal preference is QRstuff, but a lot of people like the KWA site. Both work as well. So we're going to do a couple of different options of how to create audio files. So the first is to go to whatsrecordmp3.org, and at that site, the first time that we go there, it'll show a little screen here that we'll have to click here to start, click allow and remember, and then close, and then okay, got it, and then we'll be able to record. So I'm going to go to that website and show you what that looks like. So it's recordmp3.org. And this particular website, I've got a couple of them that I'll show you, because there are times that I can't get through. Maybe it's busy and I'm not able to do what I need to do. So I'll show you a couple of those. So okay, got it. So here's that little click allow, click remember, and click close. Okay, I did it. All right, so now we can do some recording here on this website. So I'm going to grab my children's book and I'll pull a page out, and what I wanted to do was some vocabulary review from this book. So I'll click record, and as it starts to record, this is what I would record for the student. Say these words again: sleep, toes, boots, puddle, afraid, late, and brave. I click stop. I click save recording. It processes it. And this was actually a page from the book. Back of the book there were vocabulary words. So the student could see the words at the same time while getting the auditory reinforcement. And I paused between words so that the students had time to repeat. So now it uploads the file. And if it gets hung up here, we'll go to another website where we can also record. Give it a couple of seconds here. Sometimes it processes quicker than other times. Okay. Let's try it one more time on this site. I'll do some different words this time. I'll click record. Say these words again: step, barn, snore, wet, washing, school, train. Save the recording. Keep our fingers crossed that it's going to upload for us. Okay, doesn't look like it's going to happen. So Let me just show you what that should look like. So here's the process. We hit the save recording, and then once it uploads, we should get a window that looks like this. And this window then will give us a URL that we click and we copy it. And then we'll go to another website where we're going to paste that in. Since we haven't been able to copy that, what we're going to do is go to a second website, and it's called Cherbit. And I've already logged in. Cherbit, you have to create an account there, and then it saves everything that you've recorded. So you see here I've got quite a few audio recordings already done. But what we're going to do is try that recording on this website. And so I will click on record. And I have to do that allow thing again. And there's my record button. So I'll click on record and go. And the thing to point out about Cherbit is you can only record up to 5 minutes. Say these words again: step, barn, snore, wet, washing, school, train. And so I've stopped it. I want to give it a title, and we'll call this vocab words, page 124. And then I can decide the type, and I usually call these audiobooks. I don't know that it really matters. And we're going to press send. So this one's going to upload as well. Keep our fingers crossed that it uploads just fine for us. And the question is, how long do you wait until it uploads? Okay, I'm going to stop there. When it uploads, it gives you a screen that looks like this. And here is the link for it. So what I can do is click on this copy URL. And it tells me this copied text to the clipboard. And I say OK. So the next step then is for me to go to a website called qrstuff.com. And here's qrstuff.com. In the first column, you're able to identify what kind of data you're putting in. You're able to put in the website URL. You can choose a color. Remember, we had some colors that were different. Let's do a blue one. And then over here, if you keep your eye on this, this is where our code will change. So what I'll do is, remember I copied that URL, so I'll do a Control-V, I'll paste it in, and you see how our code changed from black to the blue we chose, and it now has a different arrangement. So what can we do with that code? Well, we can download it. You can't really right-click on it, so you can download, and here's another download location. Or else you can print it directly out or email it. And when you print it out, you get multiple copies of the same code on the sheet. So all those are options. If you print out directly, you cut it out, you tape it into your book, and you've got your code ready to go. Now the third option for doing a QR code, and it might be a little more consistent, is to use something like Audacity. And I'm going to bring up Audacity. Audacity is freeware. and you can download it. It is an audio recording program. So there's a lot of things in here, but if you're going to keep it very simple, then all you need to do is really know a few things. So I'm going to record a page from a book, and I will click on the record. Farmer Fred had a lot of work to do. He had to plant 10 new trees and sweep the yard, and then the sheep needed their woolly coats cut off. "I can help you plant the trees," said Big Wig. He stuck his thumb into the ground 10 times and made 10 big holes for the new trees. Okay, so there's our recording, and it's real easy to get rid of things you don't want. You highlight and you delete them. I go back to the beginning, and maybe I wanted the entry to be a little bit shorter, and I delete that. So the next step then is to export it as an MP3. I'll just throw it out onto my desktop so I can get to it easily. And it was Big Wig page, oh, I don't know, what was that, 118, and save. And then this part just ignore and just okay. So it exported it. If I went to my desktop, I should be able to find it as Big Wig right here, and I could play that. Let's try it. Farmer Fred had a lot of work to do. He had to plant 10 new trees and sweep the yard, and then the sheep needed their woolly coats cut off. "I can help you plant the trees," said Big Wig. He stuck his thumb into the ground 10 times and made 10 big holes for the new trees. Okay, so you see that recorded very nicely, and what I can do now is we're going to upload it to Dropbox, and we're going to put it in the public section of Dropbox. So here is Dropbox, and I've already logged into my site, and these are all the folders that are within it. But if I scroll down, there is a folder called Public, so I'll open that up. And I have some files already in there. And what I want to do is click on this upload button. So I'll upload, and it'll let me choose a file. And once I choose it, remember I went to my desktop, and my desktop was Big Wig. There he is, Big Wig 118. I'll say open it, and it is done. It check marked for me, so I'll say done. So here's Big Wig. Now here's what I can do. Remember, I put this in the public folder, and then I can copy that public link. So we'll copy it, and I'll just copy to the clipboard. Now I'm going back to QR Stuff. Here it is. And once again, I have a website URL. I will put that in there, Control V. My code changed. And now what I can do is take my device and read it to check it. So let's see if I can't bring out my smart device, open up Enigma. It read it, it processed it, and then the sheep needed their woolly coats cut off. "I can help you plant the trees," said Big Wig. He stuck his thumb into the ground 10 times and made 10 big holes for the new trees. So there it is. This QR code has a link to that audio file that I posted in Dropbox in the public section. All right, so let's see where we are in our PowerPoint. We looked at 3 different options for doing audio files. The first was recordmp3.org. We were unsuccessful in uploading that file for whatever reason. Sometimes it works very well, other times it works not so well. But in terms of ease of access, it's real easy to get to as opposed to needing to download something like Audacity. Sometimes teachers have issues at their school with being able to download software that they want. So this may be a better option. So that one, once it uploaded, it gave you a URL that you could copy and then go to qrstuff.com to paste it in. And here we are at QR Stuff. We indicate that it's a website URL and we paste in, and then it gives us the code. The second one was to use Turbit, and we also had problems with Turbit, which sometimes, again, it works well, and I think it's just the load that might be on the system at any given day. So we pressed record, and then up to 5 minutes you can record, and that's the big difference between Audacity and Turbit. Audacity, we can record as much as we want. Turbit is limited. So once we record it, then we press send, and we copy then, once that file is loaded to Turbit, we copy that URL. Again, go back to qrstuff.com. Okay. The third option was to use Audacity, and we were able to post our sound file into Dropbox in the public section. An alternative is something called Weebly.com, but we're not going to go into Weebly right now today because the ease of use with Dropbox is marvelous. You need Audacity, and you need a headset or microphone to do that recording. Okay, so here are the steps. Using Audacity, we recorded the project, exported as an MP3 through Audacity, uploaded to the public folder in Dropbox, and then we copied that public link, and then we put it into QR Stuff. Okay, there are other things you can do. For instance, you can share paper documents with a code and go to a website called tagmydoc.com. So let's go there, and tagmydoc is right here. So tagmydoc will let you choose a document. So I'm going to grab a document that is in my documents, and it should be in QR codes. My document is called Sort These Words by Category. Open it up. And then if you want to create an account here, you can, and it'll keep your documents for you. Otherwise, they expire in 14 days. So I'm going to click Tag Now. And I'm going to skip this step. I don't really want to do any registration, so just skip it right now. I don't want an account. So I can tag my document, and now it tells me I can download it. So I'll download it. And here it is down here. Okay. Open it up. And so we have sort these words by category. This was what my file looked like, but Tag My Doc added this QR code to the bottom. So how would I use this? Well, a student could scan the code before they walked out of the classroom. Now they've got access to that document without the paper. Think about those kids who papers don't make it home, papers don't make it back. Well, now they've got a document that is embedded in the code, and they can open it up by going into the history of their QR code reader. And once that document is open, depending upon what is used, they could go ahead and complete the document on the mobile device and then email it back in. And to do that, my recommendation is an app called Word. I'm sorry, I gotta look this one up. This is it's Office Squared HD is the name of the document that lets you, is the name of the app that lets you complete Word documents or Office documents on a mobile device. Okay, go back. So that was Tag My Doc. Now, We can also make a QR code for video, and the best way to do that is somehow or another is to get your video from your mobile. If you used a mobile device to create it, or if you used a video cam, you need to get it onto your computer. And this link will tell how to get videos directly from your iPad to your computer. Once you get it to the computer, then you want to upload it to YouTube or Vimeo. So I'm going to go to YouTube and show you how we're going to find the URL that is part of that code. I'm sorry, the URL that is part of the video that you've uploaded. So where is YouTube? Here we go. Here's YouTube. All right, so I'm in YouTube and I'm logged in, and if I go to Video Manager, I will be able to see the videos that I've uploaded. Here is the video that I created for setting the table as part of a transition video. So I'm going to click on that video, and when that opens up, I see that I have unlisted, but I also see that there's a URL associated with it, and I want to copy that URL. So click in the box, Control-C to copy it, go to that wonderful website, QR code, QR stuff. Now I tell it it's a YouTube video. And if I knew the ID, I'd post that in. Otherwise, I just give the URL, Control-V. And as I do that, my code changed again. Did you see that? So now I can download that QR code, or I can print it out, post it at the different workstations for that transition student. Okay, let's go on and see what other things we might be able to do. So that was how we would upload a video to YouTube, copy that URL, and then post that into qrstuff.com. Okay, we can also read QR codes with a webcam, and QuickMark, as I mentioned, for the PC works marvelous. I'm going to try and demonstrate this, and what I'm going to do is avoid talking, because I'm afraid that there's some, when I'm recording these presentations and using a webcam, it gets kind of funny. So I'll try and just open up QuickMark. I'll hold a QR code in front of it to have it be read. And then you should see that when it first opens up, you'll actually see me. You know, it's a webcam. And then what it will do is read the code that I'm holding up in front of it, and it should link out then to the site. So here's my code I want to show. Okay, so let's go and find QuickMark. Tilly climbed onto the roof and sat down. I cannot bet, she said. I will try to think of some magic. Okay, so what was embedded in that code was an audio file, and that was posted on a website called Weebly. So I opened QuickMark. I held the paper that had the code in front of it, and it went out, and it showed me the website that it was going to, and I had to double click on it to get there. So imagine going into a lab with your students, and what you've asked them to do is to go to a particular website. Think about sometimes how laborious that can be for some kids. And so if you had the ability of them to use the webcam and to scan a code, they could get very quickly to the website they needed to get to. Okay, so let's talk about another thing we can do, and that is to put a button into our bookmark part of our toolbar, and that would allow us to make codes very easily from websites. So this is where we're going. It's called activehistory.co.uk/QR/bookmarklet. Bookmarklet, BOOKMARKLET /. Let's go to there, and I'll show you what that looks like. So that was, here it is. So this website lets you grab this QR coder and put it up into your bookmark area of your browser. So I can click on this, drag it up, and you see if I dropped it in there, I would have another one. I've already got one there. So what I'm going to do is show you how this works. So let's go to, say, this Tag My Docs. Okay, here's the website. That little bookmarklet is still there. If I click on that, it makes a QR code right there for me, and I can right-click on it. I can copy that. I can save that image, and so here I have a very quick way of making a QR code from a website. Now you can also make QR codes through a website from Google called goo.gl, and it works very well. It can shorten your URLs as well. So we can go there and go to that one, and that's Google URL shortener, goo.gl. And I can paste in a long URL. So I'll go back to this one. This was Tag My Doc, Control-C. We'll do that one. Go back to Google. Paste that in and have it shorten it, which that wasn't too long of a one, but it did give it a little bit shorter. And then I can look at the details, and when I look at the details of that website, there's my code. So now I have a QR code generated from a shortened URL. Okay, let's look at the last thing I want to show you, and that is how to do there's a treasure hunt generator. And this lets you put in questions, and it will generate for you the codes that are those questions. So for instance, we'll go there and I'll show it to you, but what I get from this is a question. So I put in 5 questions, and the first one is, during what war was Abraham Lincoln president? And there are additional questions in. It is text only. There's no audio part of it, but it's a real nice, easy way to generate several codes. So let's go to that website. All right, so it'll bring that one up for us. And here's the QR challenge. I did it on presidents. And the first one that it generated was instructions. The second one is the question that we already saw a screenshot of. The third one, if I were to take my mobile device and open it up, open up Enigma, you hear it read, and the question number 2 is, who was the first U.S. president? So that's a real nice, easy way of generating questions that are part of a multi-question scavenger hunt. So we go back here, and the link to it is www.classtools.net/Q R/. And we'll go there. And the first thing is you submit your questions, it creates the codes, and then you can print them and display them. So that's generating a QR code from the treasure hunt generator. Okay, the last part is to give you some resources, and if you want to pause the presentation now to scan any of these codes, feel free to do that. They are all great intros, and the second one is a good one on QR codes in education. The McGuffey School one is a fabulous one where students went through the school and did videos of all the different codes that were being used throughout the school, and a lot of the examples that I went through earlier are from that video. And then if you go to Live Binders and just plug in QR codes, there's all kinds of binders that teachers have created on QR codes. So I hope that we would learn what types of information can be contained, and that included pictures and video and audio and websites. We talked about all those. That you would understand how to scan or read them using a mobile device or using a webcam. That would you be able to tell several ways to use in the classroom, gave lots of those examples. And you would know the tools that were needed. You would need some sort of a QR code reader, and then best to go to a website like QR Stuff to create the code. That you'd be able to complete that process, and hopefully after the demonstration today you can. Lastly, I have some links to some really nice little videos. The first is QR codes in an elementary classroom, and the second one is kind of a fun one. It's from the television program CSI. They found a part of a QR code, and they give a nice explanation of what QR codes are and kind of go through how it helped them to solve this particular crime. The last one is sort of a tongue-in-cheek comedian talking about QR codes and how they're kind of taking over, but the ways to use them and to not use them. So I thank you for your time in listening to this presentation. There is a quiz associated with it if you would like credit for your time, and I wish you lots of luck in using QR codes and in starting to use them in your classroom.